And we're live here on LinkedIn and on YouTube with Thom, Ives and Giuseppe Bonaccorso. One of my favorite times. I love being live. Anything can happen, right?
No, it's scary.
Thank you so much for joining us today. The topic is advice for new data scientists. So this should be a really good educational session. We're going to look at some of the fallacies, some of the myths, some of the challenges, and get the perspectives of the two of you who are sharing a field, but I think have got different backgrounds, different views, different approaches. So this should be really interesting. Giuseppe, can you start? Give us a little bit of background to yourself. What was your route to the role that you're in now?
Yes, thank you, first of all, Richard. Yeah, I started about, let's say, 16, 17 years ago. I was fascinated by the concept of mind. And so I started reading books about this concept. I lived in a small town where it was not so easy to find resources. So I found two books, I remember, about philosophy of mind and one about neural networks. So I understood immediately after reading them that my future was in that direction. So I started studying electronics engineering, automation, and then I moved in different sectors, consulting, and energy in the then I moved to military for some time, and then I decided to move to healthcare, and now I'm in Berlin. First I worked in Italy for quite a long time, and then I moved to Berlin, and now I'm still in Berlin in the healthcare sector, always with AI.
Thom, you have a mechanical engineering background as well, and 3 degrees. And are you surprised that you're in the role that you're in now, or was there an element of design in there?
It was more of just a growth pattern, just the way you see humanity grow into new things. I felt like I've been part of it. I guess I'm old enough now to even claim to be part of something like that. I feel older than dirt sometimes, but I got into engineering because I thought it was cool. And while I was going through that education, I got fascinated with predictive modeling. And then in graduate school, that grew into multi-physical modeling and control system design. And when I saw the limits of that, even before data science was called data science, I was learning neural networks, probably about the time Jan LeCun was getting his Ph.D. even. And then I was learning expert systems before they were even called that. And so it was always there in the background, but I seemed to not be in roles in my early career that enabled me to use some of the tools I learned in more of the data science realm. I was in the multi-physics realm. But over time, it seemed the world went through a shift and my data science skills were needed more. And so I just drifted into being more of a data scientist than an engineer, although I don't feel like I've ever stopped being an engineer as a data scientist.
There's a question for you both. I mean, what do you enjoy most about your work? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Giuseppe, you go first.
Well, I enjoy the fact that it's something that has no end. I mean, when you start in this field, you can continue learning every day. You can always think about a very long future. And this is something that energizes me.
I agree. I like that answer. But for me, so much of what we do is coding. And I love to invent and make things. And the nice thing is with coding and coming up with solutions in software, the turnaround time on that is fast. So you face a problem, you conceive of ways to get over the hurdles with it and get around the walls or even knock them down sometimes. And it's done in short order. Whereas, if I go out to the shop and start cutting, oh, okay, that's going to take longer. And then it may not work, but with software, the cycles are fast. And the joy of seeing your creation become valuable is fast.
2 great reasons to do what you do. And say hello to Stephanie, who's joining us on the live stream today, and Ravit as well. I think you both know Ravit.
Oh, yeah.
From PACT.
Hi, Bud.
Hi, Ravit.
Yes, thanks for joining us. Do come through with your questions as well. So what commonality do you both see in between new students, new practitioners in AI. Is there something that links people? Is there a common thread across the industry for people?
I think we're kind of mental adrenaline junkies. It's a fearful field to get into because we all know it's hard, but dang, it's cool. So we're just excited to be in it. And then it's nice because there's a significant part of the community is so interest supporting. And I love that part of it too. We know it's hard, so we're there to help each other.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. I mean, I think data science, it was considered the sexiest job in the world for a long time. And I think that the analogy is perfect because when you have a very sexy partner, let's say, you have to also to be at the same level. So it's something like that challenges you because if you want to be real sexy, not just doing the same things with a different name, but to change completely the way a company conceives data science, well, in that case, well, you must do a lot of work. So this is very important.
Actually, you brought up a quick mention of male and female there. Do you think the industry now is accessible and welcoming for diverse people, and particularly for both genders? And Thom, do you think so?
Oh gosh, I'm making friends with people all over the world through LinkedIn, and it's been accelerated because of this lockdown. It's actually, I hate to say that the lockdown and COVID is a blessing in any way, but frankly, it's forced more online community, and I'm mentoring mostly emotionally a lot of people, but I'd say very few from my own country, relatively speaking. I mean, it's not that I don't mentor some in my own country, but it's amazing how much I'm in community with people all over the world now and encouraging them through these things I'm talking about. There's this emotional trauma you go through as a data scientist because there's so much to know, and yeah, hey, we all feel that, so don't feel alone. I think even guys that write exceptional books feel that way a little bit. That was towards Giuseppe.
No, I completely agree. I mean, if I think about my team, for example, I never counted, but probably it's more than 50-50. I mean, nowadays, the number of females is very high, in particular from some countries where there are many people that are studying these subjects. And yeah, I receive CVs every day. And I mean, honestly, probably in some cases, I have to say that it's unbalanced with versus female. I mean, there are more females than males in some periods, but I think that nowadays there are absolutely no problems from this viewpoint.
That's been my experience, yeah.
That's really, really good to hear. We'll say hello to Anna, Will Kellett as well from Milton Keynes. Great to see you, and great to see Anna as well. I was going to bring up actually this thought anyway, but Rabbit's raised it. So let's jump into this one now. And it's the question of, are there fallacies about AI? Is there, you talked about the sort of sexy side, Giuseppe, the glamour of the industry. So perhaps either pick one of these questions then. Are people really clear on the amount of hard, difficult work, painstaking work that goes into this? And if you don't want to answer that one, and perhaps we'll cover both, is there some bad advice going around as well? Are things that you're hearing you think, no, that I wish people weren't saying that?
I think the worst advice, and it's very common, is to promote very quick courses, for example, or just to say you can become a data scientist in a week. I always repeat that if you want to do something serious, you have to invest. It's about value. So if you don't invest value, that is your time, your effort, you cannot get value. So if I promise I will make you a data scientist in a week, I am just trying to scam you. So it doesn't make sense. It's necessary to study. It's necessary to make experiences. And nowadays, I think that very easy, for example, to find internships in many companies. So it's not necessary to have 15 years of experience. You can start without any experience. You can be mentored by a person like Thom, and you can learn. And after a couple of years, you can become autonomous and you can start your career. That's the right way to go on.
The way I like to approach it is, look, you get to a point where you've got to design your own curriculum. You've got to keep your own learning plan going. And no one's learning plan is going to be perfect, but it's best for them if they make it themselves. So as you discover the holes that you have in your knowledge, find ways to fill those holes and go deep, dive in. Don't worry if it takes you 2 months to derive something that you're really trying to understand better and be able to code from scratch. It's not that you're going to use your own code as opposed to some lightning fast Python library. It's the insights that you gain from doing that level of work, not all the time, but occasionally.
Yeah, absolutely.
With any career, we just have to take it one step at a time. Some people might compare data science to driving at night. You know, you still got to put your foot down, do 60, 70 kilometers plus, even though you can't see beyond the headlights. What sort of advice would you have for people that, what is beyond those headlines? What are the sort of things that could derail you or demotivate you that you can be aware of ahead of time and be a bit more emotionally or psychologically ready for when it comes?
I think we're posing great answers in our minds together right now. Oh, I'll try to go at this. That's a big question. One thing I just want to encourage everyone to do is relax. It is an intimidating field, and please understand the fears, the intimidations, I like the way Danny Ma puts it, the imposter syndrome, times you feel. We all feel those things. Just slow down and remember this is an ultrathon. It's not even a marathon, it's an ultrathon, and you're going to have to stop and get some water, get some food, take a mental break every once in a while, get back at it. I hope this is answering the question, Richard, but it even if you're very skilled and well acknowledged in your company and your field and your role, you're going to hit new problems and they're going to bring you to a halt. And we all go through that. Just keep improving the language that you develop in, keep improving the skills in that. I'm Python, so people that come to me, you know, and I recognize they're Pythonistas too. Okay, keep improving your Python skills. Wait, I've seen your code. You're still trying to improve your skills? Oh yeah, definitely. I'm always learning something from someone else. And I'm going to let Giuseppe answer now because my 200-pound Mastiff wants outside, and if I don't let him, he'll interrupt our call.
That's why we're live.
No problem. Well, I completely agree. I always say that our world is made up of many problems, and thinking of a status where you work without any problem anymore, honestly, is also very boring. I wouldn't work in a company without problems because after a while you get bored. So clearly there are moments of panic, and they must be managed properly. It's important to have the right manager in that case that can help you, but it's normal. I mean, it's connected to what I said before. What we are doing is something valuable, and something valuable requires sacrifice. Sometimes there are problems. Sometimes these problems are not so easy. And when SpaceX sends a rocket to launch for a satellite, for example, do you think that they solve the problems in one day? So whenever we work, we have to think that we have problems. And the important thing is that we never give up. So there is always a solution. I learned this in many cases when I was really desperate. I mean, there were moments in my career where I was really scared because I didn't I wasn't able to find a solution immediately. But then I found a way. Maybe you can ask a colleague. You can find another person. Nowadays, there are many resources online. There is Stack Overflow that became a sort of encyclopedia where you can find answers. So ask other people, ask support, never give up. Think that a problem is the value that you are working on.
That's
When you are quiet in your office for the whole day, in that moment is like you are sleeping. I mean, you are not creating anything.
I so much agree. I'd like to give a for instance, and I'll try to be brief here, but in my current work, it's a very challenging project, and there's certain elements of it are easy and certain that are hard. But at one point, I realized, oh, I could do better if I had a synonym engine. There wasn't one that existed, and so it's just like Giuseppe said. I started okay, I'm going to have to create my own. How can I scrape this? How can I create a lookup engine? Hit a wall. Took a break. Took a walk. Started thinking.
Exactly.
Looked at the page a little more on thesaurus.com. Oh, there's a JSON object embedded in this page. Well, if I had just kept staring at my screen, I wouldn't have figured this out. And then the next thing, well, what about a base word forms? That would help me. Well, there was a guy that had seen how weak it was on a GitHub. He had cobbled together some things very effectively, but I realized it wasn't good enough for mine, so I had to augment it. And now it's still not where I want. Everything's not where I want it, but I keep building these lookup engines and these math machines. I'd never done GLOVE before, global vectors. Had to learn that from scratch. You think, well, you have a PhD, you didn't know GLOVE? No, I didn't know GLOVE. And so I started learning it. And then there's this other problem that we could talk about both, I'm sure. Oh, I'm deep into GLOVE and it's meeting my needs, but what about BERT? Oh, I got to get this generation released. Then I'll go back and look at BERT. And it's ongoing. And if I agree with Giuseppe, why would we want jobs where we weren't having to solve original problems? But are we doing groundbreaking AI research in our jobs? Probably not. But are we inventing new things on the fly sometimes? Yeah, we are. But they're not always sexy things. It's at least it's no more than 20% of what we're doing that's innovative. And even when it's innovative, is it sexy? Would it turn a lot of heads? Probably not.
I'll just pop Rabbit's comment up here just because you've been speaking there, Thom. Thom is such a calm personality. I just wish every data scientist could be this calm. So isn't that nice?
It's an act, I assure you. I'm too old to get too excited.
And let's put Will's question up here. So what Will's asking here is what kind of background makes a strong entry-level data scientist? And maybe you want to answer this with the harder skills, or maybe some of the soft skills, like kind of creativity you were talking about there. What looks good on somebody's bio at that point in their career?
Well, if I can start, honestly, nowadays there are many different backgrounds. So clearly, if we have to consider the kind of topic, mathematics, physics are normally the standard background. But this is not true anymore. There are so many engineers, computer scientists, psychologists, economists, so people with different background. Because the reality is that the real thing that you have to know to start a career in data science is the ability to learn. You have to be prepared to study, to learn. Clearly, it's normal. Also for a mathematician, I don't think that a mathematician knows everything by heart. So it's normal that sometimes you have to take your book, you have to restudy something. And it's the same for data science. So hard skills are clearly important. I don't want to put everything together, but if we think about the background, I think there are no particular limitations. The only limitation is when you say, I want to become a data scientist, I want to do very little, and I don't want to invest a lot. I want to, for example, just to use an API. There were a person I met, he said, I want to use scikit-learn. I don't want to learn what is a logistic regression. I want just to type logistic regression. That doesn't make any sense. But if you have the mindset that you want to learn, I think that the background is not an issue. And this is for the hard skills. Just to I leave now the word to Thom, but also for the soft skills. In that case, the situation is different. No one is going to teach you this kind of skills. You have to invest on yourself in communication, and you have to understand the first thing, this is extremely important, that your customer, your stakeholders that are not technicians, they are the ones that must understand you. And I always repeat this sentence: if there is a language, not a programming language, a natural language, is the language of the stakeholder. When you talk to a stakeholder, you cannot expect the stakeholder to understand your language. You have to translate the concept in a way that they can understand, they can support you, they can grant budgets. This is extremely important. And I try to encourage all the aspiring data scientists to start presenting to different audiences where there are people who have no idea. And when they finish and they go out and they say, congratulations, it was extremely interesting, that is a success. If there are only data scientists and they do the same, it's not a success. It's just a confirmation. But when you try to convince somebody that has not this background and you succeed, that's a success. Sorry, I took too long.
Oh, that was awesome. I'll add briefly, though, as far as a background that makes a good data scientist, there's too many paths. It's like when you go on a beautiful road trip and you see all these side roads, you can't take them all. So you do your best, but, demonstrate that you're passionate. Inner competitions, inner hackathons. I want to give a shout out to some people that I think are great examples of this that have reached out to work with me. Manpreet Puraja, and then I'm going to butcher his last name, but William, sorry, William. It's his last name that gets me. Staudenmeyer. These are people that have demonstrated to me they're reaching out, working with other people on LinkedIn, doing projects together. Manpreet just wrote a post on my blog expressing what she learned from college and how she's trying to think correctly to grow in corporate life. I think it's a lot like what Giuseppe was saying. There's so many areas we need to grow in, both hard skills and soft skills. Just start taking note of where you need to be stronger and be patient with yourself. It's not going to happen overnight. Growth takes decades. One other thing, I think this is important. I'm sorry, but it's more of a confession than anything. Looking back at my past, I had some serious injuries, caused me to act out in some embarrassing ways. I just had to seek healing for those things. I had to deal with my own crap to become just better at life. And that's a hard topic to cover. It's an embarrassing, humbling topic, but we all have these things, injuries and fears, etc., from our background. And they're warranted because people can be sacred and dangerous, but just learn to deal with it. Whining about it, complaining about it, acting the victim, none of that will help you grow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for those answers. And Will's just said thank you as well. There's a question here. Now, unfortunately, LinkedIn's API doesn't always display the names depending on the settings that you have. So if this person wants to write again and just tell us their name or their first name, be happy to mention them. But let's have a look at this question here because it's a really good one. Should the roles of data science, data analytics, statistics, data engineer, machine learning engineer be better defined in organizations? And the question there is, does it cause malaligned expectations or frustrations when that isn't the case? Who can start with that one?
I'll go. I'm reading John Thompson's book, Building Analytical Teams. John Thompson, thank you. It's like he looked into our souls and our experiences and said, yeah, I understand what you're going through. Here's how to fix it. But there's just a lot of confusion over what does data science mean? What does AI mean? What is machine learning? How can it help our specific needs? We've got to be patient and really talk with our business counterparts, our marketing counterparts, we just need to be patient. We need to help them because we tend to talk over technical in their minds, and they're very smart people. We need them, they need us. The world's changing fast. We need, as Stephen Covey would say, seek first to understand, then to be understood. But we also need to take that extra step of learning to be understandable to the non-data science type people.
Totally agree. If I can confirm, I mean, in organizations now, in particular large organizations, these roles are becoming very well defined. In the past, there were many overlaps. But as Thom said, it's very important to make a distinction between roles like data scientist, data engineer, who are, let's say, a little bit more on the technical side, and roles like business translators, for example, that must be the interface. So having people that can be in interface with stakeholders, can immediately translate the requirements, can find if or can understand if a solution is feasible or not during a discussion, a very informal discussion, is very important. Absolutely, I agree with, I don't know the user, unfortunately here there's this LinkedIn user, however, that this can cause a problem in a company where you don't define the roles. And in particular, I think the problem is also when you don't create the roles, because nowadays there are some different roles with specific responsibilities. Machine learning, AI, is no more what we had in the past. We are not talking about people that stay in front of their computer, they work with the software, and they just do this and nothing more. We are talking about softwares that must go in production. So we need continuous integration, repository management, containers, a lot of software engineering. And there are people that have this role now. These people must be taken into account, because otherwise the risk is to have an organization when you can create a fantastic model, but you cannot deploy it in production. When you deploy it in production, everything crashes. So absolutely, I totally agree.
It looks like a follow-up question from Saga, who was the anonymous LinkedIn user. So thank you for telling us who you are. Yeah. And it just says LinkedIn user again, but let's assume it is Saga, and he'll tell us if not. So let's just revisit that again, though. Is it clear enough? Are our young graduates, our early data scientists in their career, clear enough about what the job is? And I'll add to this that I know a good number of data scientists, and they're not scared of approaching me and saying, Rich, what projects are going on? What can I do in the evening? Because they're young, they're energetic, but they've got this spare cognitive capacity. They're not being, a lot of these guys, really put to the test in their jobs. Is that the nature of the beast, or is that the definition of the role maybe was overhyped or not clear enough?
If I can continue, and then I leave completely to Thom. This is a very important question. And the reality is that the majority of these problems are related to the job descriptions in the companies. So in a company, a machine learning engineer can be exactly like a data scientist in another company, or a data engineer. So the real problem is that these roles are very well defined. If you go on Wikipedia, you can find precise definitions. But when you apply for a job, you have to talk to the people to understand exactly what they expect from that specific role. In some cases, for example, there is a very strong overlap between machine learning engineers and data scientists. simply because you cannot afford to have a data scientist and a machine learning engineer. So you expect a person to cover both roles. Or in some cases, you want a person that is also a data engineer, for example, partially the data engineer. So my suggestion is always to ask exactly which are the responsibilities, to ask what kind of activities are necessary, and also, for example, if an existing team is in place, how the team is structured, which roles are already present, because this can help understanding what the future role of the applicant will be. Sorry, Thom, I took again too much time.
And I would have said a lot of what Giuseppe just said. So if we need to move on, that's okay.
No, come on.
Oh, okay. I mean, I can add. I'll give an example, and I'm not trying to put down the potential employer here, but they gave the job description. I was on a phone screen with them, and I said, "It sounds like you want a data engineer and a data scientist." And they said, "Well, yeah, that's right." I said, "Well, frankly, if you find someone like that, you should pay them a lot. But you've got to understand, you're going to dilute their efforts. You really should have a data engineer and a data scientist that like to work together." And but when I came even into my current role, I had to help the company, and I took it because I wanted to start something from scratch. I had to help the company understand, well, this is what I can do, and I perceive this is what you need, and so this should be the name of the role. Luckily for me, it's a great company, and they were open to me teaching them about it. But I think this is a big problem. It's something we're all going to have to be patient with, and we're going to have to be just polite about helping people understand sometimes. Now, if you're a new graduate or you're new in your career, it can seem maybe intimidating to say, hey, this isn't a good job description. But let's fast forward. Let's say you're in a role. Yeah. Your job is going to change seemingly according to needs. It's still going to be data science probably, but it may go from extremely cool and challenging to pretty mundane. But let's just ask, are we serving our business? Are we helping the business get better? That's what's really important. And so you got to be open to, well, yeah, this is a little on the edge or outside of what I thought I would do was going to do, but still grow, make the most of that. You'll only hurt yourself if you act disgruntled and this isn't what I wanted to do. Just get it done fast, get it done well, and move on.
Yeah.
The answer to my next question might be it depends, but let's find out. My background was corporate enterprise sales, and if you look at any job spec for a sales role, it's been written by the company or by HR. The prerequisites will be probably 3 to 5 years of beating your target every single year. But if you've got a salesperson who's beat their target for the last 5 years, then they're not sending CVs out. Their phone is ringing and people are begging. So that mismatch there, and I chuckle and think, well, the only thing it doesn't ask for is me to be able to walk on water for this new sales role. And are employers realistic? You talked about wanting a data engineer and a data scientist there. Are they expecting too much? Is that causing pressure for younger people that maybe is affecting their quality of life or quality of work? Giuseppe, are employers realistic?
I prefer Thom now to start. Otherwise, I take too much.
Well, I will be brief here. I think it's funny, Richard. I was going to say it depends, but the answer is actually quite different than that. This is one way I answer tough questions. Well, there's a spectrum, right? There's a distribution here. There's all the way from completely yes to completely no. Some people really know what they're doing when they're building a data science team because maybe they've gotten advice from someone like John Thompson or Milk and Honey in San Francisco area, who they're actually headhunters specifically helping companies build data science teams and know how to do it. Then there's others that think they know what they're doing and they start naming positions and building a team, and it's it will be a miracle if it doesn't fail. So hopefully the new data scientist or the person changing jobs can discern where that company's at, but also, even if it means you might not get the role, be gracious and just say, hey, I think y'all need to think about this. And I hope that helps. But yeah, it's a spectrum.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, in some cases, the expectations are sometimes are paradoxical. I mean, it's also impossible to ask for very, very long experience. Sometimes, for example, considering also the age of the applicants is doesn't make any sense. In my experience, we as I mean, the data science team is responsible for creating the job descriptions. So we try to avoid situations where the numbers make no sense. But yeah, there are situations where, for example, just to emphasize that you want a data scientist with a lot of experience, you put a very large number. Of course, first of all, I always suggest in this case to have an interview, because the interview in general can be completely a game changer. And on the other side, I also suggest to evaluate the kind of role. If, for example, if you're looking for responsibility roles, it's normal to ask for more experience that it's not necessarily connected with data science. So they say, maybe they say sometimes data science experience, but it's work experience. In that case, you can ask also for 10 years or even more. But yeah, I mean, as exactly what Thom said, it's a spectrum. It's not something very easy. Sometimes there are ridiculous requests. I mean, really ridiculous, because the numbers make no sense. But
And a shout out to our community, Richard. As the data science community, let's not be disgruntled by this state. Let's be gracious. When an employer looks like they don't know what they're doing, a potential employer, just say, hey, I want to suggest. Now, this could have two effects. They'll say, well, we don't want you and we don't want to hear from you. But it could be that the company reacts like, wow, this guy correctly identified, or gal identified our weaknesses, where we're at. Maybe they're the person we need to hire and build. And if you are that person they hire, start reading good books, and especially John Thompson and Giuseppe's books, because you're going to need them. You're going to need a lot of references.
Thom, let's stay with you, and we'll draw this live stream to a close in just a moment. But two last quick questions. I think I know one of your answers here, but what top 3 resources would you recommend that people get onto and use effectively?
Oh gosh, there's so many good resources out there. And while I do agree with Giuseppe discouraging those things that promise to make you a data scientist in a week, there are some there's some courses out there that are higher level that will just get you using the modules. I think they're great when you're new. But don't stop there. Go deeper. Know how to code at least some things from scratch. But Richard, there's too many resources. It's more like go investigate 5 resources for this thing you know you need to get better at, and pick your favorite one, but be open to looking at other references. Because what I find, and I've found in some private chats with Giuseppe on LinkedIn messaging, boy, we both love to read, because then we can control the flow of input to this thing. But I find that, yeah, Giuseppe writes really well on advanced algorithm development in Python, but sometimes I got to go look at another reference and a third reference to really get the big picture. And then when I go back and read Giuseppe's writing, oh, now I see what he's saying. Because sometimes we lack the context on this area of AI or machine learning we just don't have much skill in, or that we've studied 10 years ago and we forgot. And we just need those extra viewpoints to help us understand something. And it's that way on your primary development language. It's that way on what branch of machine learning you're looking at. I find over and over, I need I need extra input, multiple counselors, so to say.
Yeah, agree. I mean, for me, books are the first source. It's a personal opinion. There are so many interesting courses online. Some of them are very high quality. So if a person has the patience, I mean, I'm not very patient in listening. I prefer to read, but there are so many good courses. But the suggestions given by Thom is absolutely valuable. You cannot use a single book. There are no Bibles in data science. Even the best books have limitations. In some cases, some descriptions are not very well done. So having different books comparing, first of all, allows you to find new topics also, because in general there are no completely equivalent books, but also to see different viewpoints of the same topic. And it's very important. I understand that this is also an investment, but nowadays there are many solutions. For example, to access to books using, for example, I don't know, you pay a monthly fee and you have access to hundreds or thousands of books, and this is fantastic because you can compare, you can check, and you can find the answer to your questions whenever you need.
I want to add, Richard, because this is so important. In our private messages between one another, Giuseppe and I have commented so many books or so many resources, let's put it that way, so little time. That's why that personal learning plan, developing it, revising it over time is so important, because you actually have to carefully choose, okay, what resources am I going to invest in? What resources are going to be those extra little side things to help me understand the main resource I've chosen? It's mind-boggling how much material's out there. So go about it wisely.
Fantastic, and I do hear a clear message there from that as well. That don't just stick to one small area. Read around, be broad, get different perspectives and contexts. And it sounds like that's the same for courses and books. Murray Grubb Jr., great answer. Thom, that's nice. Kunal's logged in as well. He's asking about the difference between ML and data analytics and AI, but that's going to have to be for another session, I'm afraid, now. But great question. Otherwise, we're here for another hour. And,
go find the answer, dude, and tell us all. Do a post on it, please. I'd like to hear your answer.
So I'll give you both a metaphorical gift just to close this session down, and I'll say my thanks just after this. I'll give you both a big billboard, and this is a very clever billboard because it appears to every single data scientist on the way to work. Either that's the corridor in their house at the moment, or in the future it's outside a tube station or something. What do you want that to say? What's the message? What would you send out to the community on that billboard?
Oh. Giuseppe, you want to go first?
I'll probably
go first if you want me to, but I want to.
No, I can go. I have already my answer. Good. I repeated this answer many times, and I always repeat it. I'm never tired. And the answer is that I always say to myself, the road is always ahead. And I added another statement, stop only for resting and then restart. Because this is a journey, and the journey of life in general. So you have to go on. If you don't go on, there's no way to solve anything. So you have to rest, but then you have to go on. I repeat this every day to myself.
I say rest is the biggest component, but my billboard would be AI, data science, machine learning, whatever. Come improve humanity with us, but be brave, be humble.
That's nice. That's very nice. Giuseppe, I was just thinking of a Coldplay song. No one said it would be easy, but no one said it would be this hard.
Yeah.
But fantastic messages. Keep going, of course. And it's like we say about the big picture. No matter what you think about the state of the world it is right now, the future is not written. It's up to us, all of us,
Absolutely.
to write
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
It's absolute privilege to spend time with the two of you. I know how busy your schedules are, so thank you for lending some time to this and to the audience that was around today. I hope it was very valuable for everybody who tuned in. I know it was for me. So a big thank you, Thom, Giuseppe, for spending some time today on this topic of advice for data scientists, and perhaps we can do some more in the future as well.
Richard, I want to say on behalf of the community, I hope everyone agrees. Thanks for what you do to add to our greater data science community. I really appreciate your work. And it was
Thanks,
an
Thom.
honor to be on the show with you two.
Exactly the same. Thank you for inviting us and for your work. And I'm sorry for the questions that have been asked, and unfortunately the time is limited and we cannot answer. But thank you for this event.
Yes.
Okay, we'll close the live stream and see everybody soon.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.